I'm Warren Pole and welcome to the 33 Shake vlog. Today's show is all about training using heartbeats per mile as opposed to the heartbeats per minute idea that we're all very familiar with. This is a cheeky little strategy that could just unlock some serious gains in your performance. At 33 Shake, we're all about delivering maximum value to endurance athletes. We do that in this vlog by sharing the very best in tips and tricks for nutrition, training and mindset performance for your endurance sport. And we do it in store at 33shake.com with our awesome natural sports nutrition products. Now with that said, let's get on with the show. As endurance athletes, we're used to using heart rate, as in beats per minute, to measure and monitor our training and performance. But a better way could be by measuring using heartbeats per mile instead. Our good mate and top marathon runner Tim Hemming wrote all about this on our blog at 33shake.com, and we loved it so much that we wanted to share it out here. Now, we're all used to using heartbeats per minute, but as Tim's brought to our attention, new evidence is suggesting that using heartbeats per mile can take your game to another level. After all, when you want to know how expensive it's going to be to run your car, you ask about miles per gallon, not miles per minute, right? Bear with us, this is much the same sort of thing we're looking at with the kind of measuring we're talking about here. Why not take a similar approach with your body to find out how much effort will be needed over a certain distance at a certain pace? Look at your heartbeats per mile, as in miles per gallon, instead of your heartbeats per minute. Going back to the car analogy, it's much like monitoring fuel economy and not acceleration. And as endurance athletes, fuel economy is something that really, really matters to us. Don't worry if this is sounding confusing. It will make sense in due course. It just takes a little bit of wrapping your head around. Now, I'm sure if you're joining us on this show, you're already aware of how useful a heart rate monitor can be to help your training and work out your fitness, see your progress or work out when you're overtrained, all of those basics. It's a great, great tool. And that's measuring in beats per minute. But some of the world's best endurance athletes are now starting to measure themselves and their training and performance using heartbeats per mile instead. Basically, calculating how many heartbeats it takes to go between one point and the next, in this case a mile, could be a kilometre, could even be a set distance or a Strava section, entirely up to you. They're looking at heartbeats per mile. Steve Way is a great example of this. He was third at this year's Comrades Marathon, a 56-mile ultra in South Africa. He's been using heartbeats per mile for years, and it helped him transform from being an overweight heavy smoker to a 2-hour 15 marathon runner and representing Great Britain at the Commonwealth Olympics. It helped him transform from being an overweight smoker to being a 2:15 marathon runner and representing Great Britain at the Commonwealth Games. Now, we're not promising that suddenly switching to heartbeats per mile is going to see you smashing 2-hour 15-minute marathons or joining Great Britain on the international stage. However, let's just say Steve Way's example suggests there's something in this and we could all benefit. What he says about it, he says, it can vary a little day to day depending on various factors, the type of run, the weather, what I last ate, how tired I am. He said, but if I look for the pattern or the trend over a number of weeks, I can see the value coming down as I become more efficient aerobically. Interested? You should be. So how do we go about doing this? You want to give this a go. How do you go about measuring your fitness or measuring your training using heartbeats per mile? Fortunately, the maths are pretty simple. Let's take an example. If you run an 8-minute mile and your average heart rate is 140 beats per minute, you'll be running at 1,120 beats per minute. That is 8 minutes times 140 beats a minute. Everyone with me so far? Good. Returning to our car analogy, fuel economy is typically provided in miles per gallon, and this can be flipped to give us the amount of fuel taken to cover a set distance. So if you imagine each heartbeat required over a certain distance is equivalent to a unit of fuel. The lower the number needed to travel the same distance, the better the economy. Simple, right? So what we're looking for is to reduce the number of heartbeats per mile it takes us to cover the distance. So how accurate is this as a fitness guide? Heartbeats per mile is an entirely individual metric. Got to remember this. You can only use it to measure yourself against yourself. Okay, so your previous results, you can look at those, you can measure those, but everyone has a different maximum heart rate, and that's going to change with age as well. It's going to decrease with age. And the individual nature of this data means comparing your heartbeats per minute. Sorry, even I'm getting confused. The individual data needed to compare your heartbeats per mile to someone else's is going to be meaningless. So first thing to remember, you can only ever compare yourself against yourself using this metric. Secondly, as Steve Way pointed out earlier, different days, different weather, different terrain. In the short term, you may see more extreme variation. What you're looking for is a long-term trend whereby the number of heartbeats taken to cover a set distance that's known on the same terrain or course is going down. So for a test that you can reproduce to measure your fitness gains, set yourself a flat course on consistent ground and try and run an even pace. Then repeat a month later, measure both at heartbeats per mile and see what the difference is. Now, I can already hear people's brains ticking over. Everyone's looking for the next performance advantage. Everyone's trying to work out, okay, I get it. How can I use this to find my perfect pace? Can it be done? Okay, this is where it gets interesting and the figures get a little more geeky. Instinctively, you might think the easier you run, the more efficient in heartbeats per mile you're going to become. But this may not be the case. Let's take our earlier example. If you're running an 8-minute mile at an average of 140 beats per minute, that is 1,120 beats in total for that mile, as in 8 minutes, 1 mile, 140 beats per minute. 8 minutes times 140 beats a minute, 1120 beats per mile. Now, let's speed that up to a 7-minute mile. And let's say that doing so raises your heart rate to 160 beats a minute. Well, now we're talking 7 minutes times 160 beats per minute to cover that mile. That's 1,155 beats per mile. So that is more than if you were running the 8-minute mile. Now, what about if you slow down? Let's drop down to a 9-minute mile. Let's say your heart rate now goes down to 130. This time we're talking 9 minutes times 130 beats per minute. We've got 1,170 beats per mile. That is even higher than running the 7-minute mile. It's a very tricky balance between the time taken, the distance covered, the number of heartbeats you're going to need to do it. But you can see from this example that the pace for this runner, in this hypothetical case, the optimum pace out of these three examples is the 8-minute mile. At 140 beats a minute, that gains this runner the fewest beats needed to cover that mile. So, how are we going to wrap all this up? Best thing, if you're interested in this, have a play with it. Work it into your training, see if you enjoy it. The maxim, what gets measured, gets managed, is at the heart of this, if you'll forgive the unintentional pun there. If you find it a useful and enjoyable metric, go for it, use it, work with it, fly with it, take it further. You may be representing Great Britain at the next Commonwealth Games following in the illustrious footsteps of Mr. Steve Way. Now on the flip side, keeping tabs on absolutely every metric and spreadsheets on everything is not for everyone. And even for those who love the stats, there are some days you just want to run, you just want to ride, you just want to swim. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you've got to balance this all out. Okay? So for any time you find heartbeats per mile, or any other means of measuring your training for that matter, if it's not enjoyable, and if it's not taking you to your goals, then don't use it. But, like I said, try it, see what you think. If you like it, stash it in the performance toolkit. See where it takes you. That, in a nutshell, is training with heartbeats per mile. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. And if you give it a go, let us know how you get on. We've been having a lot of fun playing with it in our training here. To connect with all things 33 Shake, join us on social media or drop us a line on email. You can find all of our contact details, all of our social profiles in the notes below this. And if you are after the very best in endurance nutrition for your cycling, running, swimming or triathlon, why not head in store to 33shake.com and check us out. We'd love to see you there.